So welcome back, and if you enjoyed watching me create this in isometric in AutoCAD, let's go ahead and see how different it works in the 3D portion of AutoCAD. And you're going to also see that once I create the 3D model, this is nothing more to create, but just a simple clicks. Alright, so let's go ahead and switch on over and start working on doing this in 3D AutoCAD. Okay, so what I like to do when I create these is I kind of break it up into many different components. So what I mean by that is that I see certain things that I can create and then put them together. For example, this big L shape, and I'm just going to stop it right here. It's going to be one piece that I'm going to create, and then I'll create this front piece here, and then I'll add this other piece here, which is a rectangle, to cut out this bottom portion. So if I consider and kind of analyze this before I go into it, you're going to see that I'm only going to use 3 shapes to create this. This is going to be my first one, so this is shape number 1. Then we're going to take a look at shape number 2, and I'm sorry that my trying to create this on the computer is a little difficult to do, but this is shape number 2. And then finally, I'm going to create this one here, which is shape number 3. Okay? So this is what I'm going to use to create this 3-dimensional object. So what that tells me is, starting with shape number 1, I do have my boundaries already set up. I have the 60, the 25, the 80, and then the 90. And then when I come across this way, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 10 off of it, because that 10 is going to be this distance here. So I'm going to take 10 off of this number to create this shape. Okay? Alright, so in AutoCAD, what I'm going to do is open up a new sheet, which is just clicking this plus here. And once I do this, I need to tell AutoCAD that I'm going to be doing some 3-dimensional things here. So the way that we do that is that I'm going to select this little gear here, this sprocket, click the fly up next to it, and then I'm going to jump over to 3D modeling. You can use the 3D basic one. It has a lot less commands to use. But I like to use the 3D modeling as I can see all of the commands that I typically might want to use. So I'll select the 3D modeling. You're going to give it a second and your ribbon should change over. And now the drafting portion in here is going to be exactly the same. We have some rules that we have to remember that anytime we're creating 3-dimensional objects. Alright, if you're not too familiar with some of these commands or where your line commands and things of that nature, they're still listed up here at the top. You just have to go and click back on different icons, but all of your draw stuff is going to be located here, which is in a little small window. Your annotation and your insert tabs are exactly the same as they were when you do in the 2D drafting. The only thing different is that now we're going to have this 3D portion, which is located here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grid, and I'm going to create my first shape. I'm going to use a polyline. And you can use this with a regular line, so I'm going to create the other shape with a regular line, and then I'll show you how to make that a polyline. But one of the most important rules that when you're creating 3-dimensional objects in AutoCAD is that it needs to be a closed polyline. Alright, so I'll go with the polyline, just like we did, and I'm doing regular 2D drafting. Let's go ahead and also turn our ortho on since all of these lines are going to be straight. Let's click here. Let's go up 60. And I'm just going to scroll out, and now I'm going to have to break this command, so go ahead and hit escape, zoom out, and then go back to the polyline command, and don't worry, we'll go ahead and join this back later. Let's click here, let's go this direction, 25, let's go down to 90, let's go to the right here, instead of 120, remember we're going to take that 10 off of it, so I'm going to type in 110 here. If we don't know that height to go up, remember that I can use my polar tracking or my O-snap tracking in this function. So I'm just going to touch that endpoint, come up, and where it lines up, and you see that distance is 30. So I'll click here, and then I'll click here. Alright, I'll hit escape. And you can see that this is not a closed object because we do have one polyline that's sitting out here. So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm just going to hit J enter on the keyboard, And you can see that that one segment was joined, and now I have one polyline created. So it's real important to take a look at your command line to actually see that. Another key is that if I select this, everything should light up, which it does. One last option, and you don't have to do this, but if I right click on this object and I go to properties, one of the things that it will tell you in your properties window, and I have this polyline selected, is that it is indeed closed. So you can see the word yes here. So it's a closed polyline. Alright, so the next shape I'm just going to create with regular lines. So I'm just going to use the regular line command. And I'm going to start at the same location like I did before. I'm going to click here. 25. Let's go up. 20. Let's go to the right. 20. Let's go down. 20. Let's go to the right. 35. I'm going to go up 50. To the left. 20. I'm going to go up 20. To the left. 40. Go down 20, and to the left 20, and then at this point we can go C, enter, to close it back to the original shape. Alright, so all of these are individual lines. Once again, remember, and I can't stress how important this is that anytime you're trying to create any 3D things, they have to be a closed polyline. So what I'm going to do is highlight all of this, and simply type J, and that J stands for join, enter. Once again, read your command line. It says 12 objects are converted into one polyline. If it says 2 polylines or 3 of them, go ahead and highlight it again and go and select J, enter again, and keep doing that as many times as you can until it creates one polyline. Alright, so I have these 2 shapes. The last shape that I'm going to need to create is going to be that square that's located right under here. I'm just going to use a rectangle command, which is located here. I'm going to click this endpoint, and I'm going to go down to this endpoint. Alright? That's another kind of important feature that you must learn, is that you can't have shared lines. So I had to create a all new square here, and I'll go ahead and move that for you just so you can see that it is indeed one shape. You see all of these lines were shared, but anytime I'm creating a 3-dimensional shape, I can't really share that, if that makes any sense. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and start doing some 3D modeling now. So I'm going to switch this to an isometric view. And now you can see that I have all of my shapes. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the 2D wireframe, because I do have some benefits with gizmos and things of that nature, which is another kind of important concept of rotating things and moving things around. Also, remember where your front view is at. So if we always remember that isometric views, we have a front view, a right side view, and a top view. And let's switch over to the drawing to show you exactly what I mean by that. So here you can see that this is my front view, so I'm going to position my model in the way that this is going to represent my front view. This is going to be my right side view and my top view. So you should be able to see that when I'm done creating this shape, and also looking at the view cube. Okay, so back in the drawing, you can see I have my front, left, and things of that nature. I can rotate this around to already set it up to where my front view is going to be at the front, right? So if I want to make it look like an isometric drawing, this is the front view, that's the right side, and then that's going to be the top. In order to use my gizmos, I have to be in any other one other than this 2D wireframe. So I'm just going to simply select the 2D wireframe, and then in the drop-down box, I can select the word wireframe. That puts me in a 3D wireframe, and you can see that mine, I have my background to change when I do that. Yours will probably still stay the black color, but that's just something that I did on mine, just to let me know. Alright, so I want to rotate this, so the next thing I'm going to do is select the rotate gizmo. And now what this does is that when I select an object, I'll get the gizmo to appear. The way to use the gizmo is that I'm going to select the red axis, and that's going to be the axis that it's going to rotate around. So select the red axis, and then what I usually do is move my cursor going up. My ortho is already set, so it's only going to move in 90-degree increments. So once I point up, I can left click here, and you're going to see that shape will indeed stand up for me. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this some depth now. We know the depth of this, or the extrusion of this, needs to be 80. So I'm going to go to Extrude. I'm going to select this object, enter, and then I have to tell it which direction do I want it to go, either that direction or this way. Doesn't matter to me, so I'm just going to point this direction and type in 80. So I need to aim the direction that I need to do and then give it the distance. So once I hit 80, you'll see that that shape will indeed create. Okay, so now I have my front face that I need to put on here. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to extrude it. Once I select that object, I need to give it the depth or the height that it's going to be. And in this case, it's going to be 10. Now I need to kind of manipulate this to stand it up and rotate it around. So I'm going to select this face like I did with the red axis. I'm going to select the red one. I'm going to stand it up this direction. So once I'm up here, I'll do a left click. Then I'm going to select the blue axis. Then I'm going to aim this direction. All right? So I'm aiming this direction. And now keep in mind that you need to know which side is the kind of fatter side or the longer side than the other side. So I want this longer side sitting here on the right hand side. So I'm going to go this direction. I'll left click. Kind of zoom in a little bit. And then I'm going to use the regular move command. So just move, M enter, or you can select this icon here for the move. I'm going to put this endpoint onto that endpoint. Okay. Now, you can see that these are two separate pieces, but I want them to be one piece. The way you do that, and there are Boolean operations to do that. This one we're going to use is going to be the union one. So I'm going to go to union, and then it's going to select objects. It doesn't matter the order that you select the objects in. I'm going to select this object and this object. Once again, you could have selected it in either option. Go ahead and hit enter. You're going to see that line disappear, and now this is one shape. Alright, the final thing I need to do is that it doesn't really tell me that this hole goes all the way through, but you can kind of take a look at this isometrically, and if you look at the drawing, this kind of continues on through it. So that's my key to know that this is at least that long, or longer than what it is right now. It doesn't really tell me. I'm just going to shoot it all the way through. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up my square that I have created here. I'll select it, then I'll select the green axis. Come up, left click here. I'll go ahead and use the move command. And I'm going to move from this endpoint to that endpoint. Last step I need to do is go ahead and use the extrude function. So I'll go to extrude, select the square, enter. And I'm just going to send this all the way back through it. Doesn't matter the length as long as it goes through the whole entire object. Then I'm going to use the subtract Boolean operation. So I'm going to subtract. In this case, it does matter the order that you select. So you select the object you want to keep first. So I want to select this big object, enter. And then the object that I want to subtract from it is going to be this object. And then hit enter. And you're going to see that it will indeed subtract that through. Alright. You can also take a look at my view cube. This is the front view, this is the right side view, and this is the top view. If I move this, or sorry, not move it, if I change this to another visualization, let's use something like shades of gray, and then you can kind of see a more realistic view of what I have created. Alright, so that's all with the 3D modeling of it, but I'm going to show you a little small portion of the 2D part of it, just because you'll see that this is done, and it didn't take us that long to do the modeling, but if we had to create a drawing out of this, it would be even quicker. So what I need to do is switch over to the layout tab. I'm going to go ahead and delete the viewport here, so I'm going to select this and hit delete on my keyboard. I'm going to switch to the layout tab here at the top, and then I'm going to go to the base option here. So underneath the base option, I'm going to choose for a model space. Once I move my cursor down here, and what's happening behind the scenes is that it should be loading up what's going on behind the scenes there. So it's actually loading up the 3D portion. And this is one of those things that, depending on how much stuff you have open or how fast your computer is, this should load up really quickly. So now you see that the shape should come in following you, and it has the front view. So that's why it's so important to set it up the correct way. So I'm going to select here is where I'm going to place that front view. I'll go ahead and hit enter, And now it's asking me to go ahead and place the other views. I'm just going to left click here above, left click here to the side, and then I'm going to left click here at the top. And once I'm done with that, I can go ahead and hit the enter button, and then it should create all three of those views. All right? And you can see that it's going to give me the view if I was to draw this as well as the hidden lines. And you can change that by selecting it, and then go to edit view. And I'm waiting a second here, and instead of going to hidden lines, I'll go to shaded with these visible lines. And now you're going to see that it is created that way. All right? So that's just kind of a super quick overview of how these isometrics can be created. So hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one, which will be me creating this one in Inventor. Thank you.